No one expected the most unforgettable moment of the day to come from a 9-year-old. It wasn't a royal ceremony. It wasn't a public event. It wasn't even in front of cameras. It happened during a private family lunch at Windsor Castle where only close members of the royal family were present. Everything seemed calm. Conversations were polite. Lunch was being served. Then one simple family word changed the atmosphere in seconds. A quiet response from Princess Charlotte brought every conversation to a complete stop. No shouting, no argument, just silence. The kind of silence that tells everyone something important has just happened. What surprised everyone wasn't only what Charlotte said, it was why she said it. Behind that single moment was a story that had been quietly building for weeks. A story about family, memories, loyalty, and emotions that even adults struggled to understand. Today, we're taking a closer look at how one private family conversation became one of the most talked about royal stories, and why many believe it revealed something much deeper than a disagreement over a title. Inside Windsor Castle, the gathering was never meant to become memorable. It was simply one of those private family lunches where members of the royal family could spend time together away from public duties. King Charles was there. Queen Camilla joined the family. Prince William and Princess Catherine arrived with Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Unlike official royal events, there were no photographers waiting outside, no speeches, no formal protocol beyond ordinary family manners. For a while, everything appeared completely normal. The children talked quietly, adults exchanged light conversation. The atmosphere felt relaxed, but those closest to the family knew recent months had not been entirely easy. There had already been quiet discussions about family relationships, changing roles, and how the younger generation was growing up with questions about relatives they had never personally known. Still, nobody expected those emotions to surface that afternoon. As lunch continued, the conversation naturally turned toward family. At one point, Queen Camilla casually spoke about being part of the children's grandparent generation. For most families, it might have been an ordinary comment. But before anyone else could respond, Princess Charlotte calmly looked up without raising her voice, without sounding angry. She simply made it clear that she already knew who her grandmothers were and preferred not to use that title for Camilla. The room instantly fell silent. Nobody interrupted, nobody laughed awkwardly, nobody knew exactly what to say next. Even King Charles appeared surprised by how calmly the words had been spoken. There was no disrespect in Charlotte's tone. Only certainty. That made the moment even more powerful. Instead of reacting emotionally, she simply expressed how she genuinely felt. For the adults around the table, it was immediately obvious that this wasn't a random comment. It sounded like something Charlotte had thought about for quite some time. Prince William didn't immediately correct his daughter. Princess Catherine quietly watched her instead. That small reaction said almost as much as Charlotte's words. It suggested this wasn't simply childhood stubbornness. There was likely a deeper reason behind it, and over the next few hours that reason slowly began to emerge. Because the lunch itself wasn't the beginning of the story, it was only the moment when weeks of quiet emotions finally came to the surface. As the lunch quietly came to an end, Princess Catherine chose not to question Charlotte in front of everyone. Instead, she waited until they were alone. There was no lecture, no criticism. Only one gentle question. "Can you tell me why you felt that way?" Charlotte didn't answer immediately. For a few moments, she simply looked down, carefully thinking about her words. Then she explained something that surprised even her mother. According to Charlotte, this wasn't about being rude. It wasn't about trying to embarrass anyone. She said that to her, family titles meant more than tradition. They represented love, trust, comfort, and memories. And those feelings couldn't simply be assigned because of someone's position within the royal family. As Charlotte continued speaking, Catherine slowly realized this moment hadn't started during lunch. It had actually begun several weeks earlier. During a quiet family gathering at Windsor Castle, Prince William had been showing his children old family photographs. Among them were pictures of Princess Diana. William wasn't giving a history lesson. He was simply sharing memories. He wanted George, Charlotte, and Louis to know more about the grandmother they would never have the chance to meet. He spoke about Diana as a caring mother, a kind person, someone whose memory would always remain part of their family's history. Charlotte listened carefully. She looked at the photographs with curiosity. Although she had never met Diana herself, she wanted to understand why her father spoke about her with such warmth. For Charlotte, these weren't just old pictures. They were pieces of her own family story. Then, according to the account, Queen Camilla entered the room. She noticed the photographs and joined the conversation. What happened next wasn't described as an argument. Nobody raised their voice. Instead, there was simply a brief comment that Charlotte remembered very differently from the adults around her. Camilla reportedly suggested that Charlotte shouldn't become too emotionally attached to someone she had never personally known, especially when she had family members around her today. To many adults, those words may have sounded practical, perhaps even harmless, but to a young child they felt very different. Charlotte quietly interpreted the comment as if remembering Diana somehow made others uncomfortable. She didn't argue, she didn't cry, she didn't challenge anyone. Instead, she stayed silent. Sometimes children don't immediately explain what they're feeling. They simply carry those feelings with them, and that's exactly what seemed to happen here. Over the following weeks, Charlotte continued thinking about that conversation. The more she reflected on it, the more she reached her own conclusion. For her, honoring Diana's memory wasn't about choosing sides. It was about protecting an important part of her family's history. So when the topic of grandparents unexpectedly came up during lunch, the answer she gave wasn't spontaneous. It was the result of weeks of quiet reflection. By now, Prince William was beginning to understand something important. This wasn't really about a title. It was about how a child understood family, memories, and emotional connection. And before anyone could decide what should happen next, William knew he needed to hear the full story himself. Later that evening, Prince William quietly knocked on Charlotte's bedroom door. There was no pressure, no expectation. He simply wanted to understand what his daughter had been feeling. Charlotte calmly repeated everything she had shared with her mother. She explained that in her heart, remembering Princess Diana didn't feel like looking into the past. It felt like staying connected to someone who would always be part of her family's story. She also admitted something that caught William's attention. Charlotte said she never wanted to hurt Queen Camilla. She only wanted to stay honest about her own feelings. That simple sentence changed the entire situation. William realized this wasn't a child acting out. It was a young girl trying to express emotions she hadn't fully known how to explain. As a father, he faced a difficult decision. Should he ask Charlotte to apologize simply to restore peace? Or should he protect her right to express genuine feelings respectfully? After thinking carefully, William chose the second path. Not because he wanted conflict, but because he believed trust inside a family cannot be forced. The following day, William requested a private conversation with Queen Camilla. There were no advisors, no palace officials, no formal meeting, just two adults discussing a family matter. William explained that Charlotte had been carrying confusion for weeks. He said the issue was no longer about what happened during lunch. It was about how one earlier conversation had affected a child. Camilla listened carefully. She admitted that she had never intended to upset Charlotte. According to her, she had only wanted the children to focus on the family relationships they could build today, rather than becoming emotionally attached to someone they had never met. William understood her point, but he gently offered another perspective. Children, he explained, don't always hear words the same way adults mean them. Sometimes, a single sentence can stay with a child far longer than anyone realizes. He told Camilla that Charlotte believed remembering Diana and accepting Camilla somehow meant choosing between them. And that was never a choice a child should feel forced to make. The conversation became emotional. For the first time, Camilla openly admitted that living in the shadow of Princess Diana had never been easy. Years after joining the royal family, comparisons with Diana still appeared in newspapers, documentaries, and public conversations. She confessed that those constant comparisons sometimes made her feel like she could never truly belong. William listened with respect. He didn't dismiss her feelings, but he gently reminded her of one important truth. Charlotte wasn't comparing anyone. She wasn't trying to replace one person with another. She was simply learning about her own family history. And children should never feel guilty for asking questions about the people who came before them. That realization changed the tone of the entire conversation. For the first time, both William and Camilla seemed to understand they weren't standing on opposite sides. They had simply been viewing the same situation through completely different experiences. The challenge now wasn't deciding who was right. It was finding a way for everyone to move forward without asking a child to ignore her feelings or asking an adult to ignore their own. And soon, King Charles would find himself facing the same difficult question: could family harmony be restored? Without asking anyone to pretend, after speaking with both William and Camilla, King Charles found himself in an unusually difficult position. This wasn't about royal protocol. It wasn't about public appearances. It was about family. As both a father and a grandfather, he understood that emotions couldn't simply be solved with authority. A private meeting was arranged between Charles and William. No staff, no advisors, no official record, just father and son. Charles began by expressing his concern. He worried that if the disagreement continued, it could quietly create distance within the family. William listened respectfully. Then he explained something that shifted the conversation. He told his father that Charlotte had never refused to show respect. She would always behave politely. She would always follow royal traditions during official occasions. But family titles, he said, were different. They weren't part of protocol. They came from personal feelings, and those feelings couldn't be ordered by anyone, not even by a king. For a moment, the room fell silent. Charles understood exactly what his son meant. A monarch could decide ceremonial traditions. A monarch could guide public duties, but no monarch could command genuine affection. That realization wasn't easy to accept. Charles cared deeply about Camilla. He knew she had spent many years trying to earn her place within the royal family. He also understood why Charlotte's words had been painful for her. At the same time, he couldn't ignore another truth. Charlotte was still a child. If she were forced to use words she didn't truly feel, what lesson would that teach her? After a long pause, Charles finally gave his answer. He said that Charlotte should always remain respectful. But she would never be forced to use a family title that didn't come naturally to her. It wasn't a victory for one side, and it wasn't a defeat for the other. It was simply an acknowledgement that relationships grow through trust, not obligation. When Camilla later learned about Charles's decision, she didn't argue. Instead, she quietly withdrew from a few private family gatherings. She still carried out every official royal duty. She continued attending public engagements. But during informal family events, she became noticeably absent. Some believed she was protecting herself from another uncomfortable moment. Others wondered whether she simply needed time. Meanwhile, Charlotte began noticing something. She asked Catherine why Camilla hadn't been coming to family gatherings anymore. For the first time, Charlotte looked genuinely concerned. She hadn't wanted anyone to feel left out. She hadn't wanted to create distance. She had only wanted to be honest. Catherine gently reassured her. She explained that adults are responsible for managing their own emotions. Children should never feel responsible for fixing every difficult situation around them. Those words seemed to comfort Charlotte, but they also revealed something important. Despite everything that had happened, she never wished Camilla any harm. In fact, she hoped one day things could feel normal again. That quiet realization changed everything, because everyone finally understood. The disagreement had never been about rejecting a person. It had only been about protecting a memory, and once that difference became clear, the possibility of healing finally began to appear. Over the next few days, the tension inside the family didn't disappear overnight. No one expected a dramatic apology. No one planned a carefully staged reunion. Instead, everyone agreed on one simple idea. If trust was ever going to return, it had to begin with an honest conversation. Not between kings, not between future monarchs, but between two people whose feelings had been misunderstood. Soon afterward, a quiet meeting was arranged. There were no cameras, no advisors, no members of the press, only Princess Charlotte and Queen Camilla. Princess Catherine stayed nearby, but she deliberately gave them privacy. This wasn't meant to become another formal royal discussion. It was simply an opportunity to listen. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Then Charlotte gently broke the silence. She explained that she had never wanted to hurt Camilla. She wasn't trying to embarrass her during lunch. She simply didn't want anyone to think that remembering Princess Diana meant any less to her family. Charlotte said that the stories her father shared about Diana helped her feel connected to someone she had never been lucky enough to meet. Those memories mattered to her. And when she believed those memories were being questioned, she felt she needed to protect them. Camilla listened without interrupting. For the first time, she fully understood how her earlier words had been interpreted through the eyes of a child. She slowly admitted something she had never expressed so openly before. She said that hearing Diana's name had sometimes brought back feelings of insecurity. For many years, people had compared her to Diana, sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly. Over time, those comparisons became emotionally exhausting. Without realizing it, those emotions had influenced the way she responded during that earlier family conversation. Camilla looked at Charlotte and quietly said something important. She explained that she had never wanted the young princess to stop remembering Diana. If her words had made Charlotte feel that way, she was genuinely sorry. It wasn't the intention behind the comment, but she now understood that intentions don't always erase the impact words can have. Charlotte listened carefully. Then she gave a small smile. She said she appreciated the apology. She also explained that although she still wasn't comfortable using the word grandmother in private, that didn't mean she wanted distance between them. She respected Camilla. She would always treat her kindly. She simply wanted family relationships to develop naturally without feeling pressured. Camilla nodded. For the first time since everything began, she didn't ask Charlotte to change her mind. She didn't ask for a different title. She didn't ask for another explanation. Instead, she accepted Charlotte's feelings exactly as they were. That simple decision changed the atmosphere completely. The conversation no longer felt like a disagreement. It became the beginning of understanding. As they stood to leave, Charlotte paused for a moment. Then she turned back with one quiet question. "Will you come to the family birthday gathering next week?" Camilla looked surprised. After everything that had happened, she hadn't expected a personal invitation. A warm smile slowly appeared across her face. "Yes," she replied softly, "I'd like that very much." It wasn't a grand royal moment. There were no headlines, no official announcement, just two people choosing to move forward with honesty instead of misunderstanding. Sometimes healing doesn't begin with dramatic speeches. Sometimes it begins with one sincere conversation. A few days later, the royal family gathered once again for a private family celebration. This time, the atmosphere felt noticeably calmer. The earlier tension had eased. No one mentioned the disagreement from Windsor. No one brought up family titles. Instead, everyone simply focused on enjoying the time together. But outside the gathering, photographers were waiting. As members of the royal family left the event, cameras captured every smile, every glance, every interaction. Then came one small moment that immediately attracted public attention. Princess Charlotte approached Queen Camilla. Rather than giving her a hug, Charlotte politely extended her hand. Camilla smiled warmly and accepted the gesture without hesitation. To those inside the family, it was a simple act of mutual respect. But to people watching from outside, the image quickly became something much bigger. Within hours, newspapers and television programs began offering their own interpretations. Some described it as proof that tensions still existed. Others claimed it showed a family divided behind palace walls. Social media quickly filled with opinions. Everyone seemed convinced they knew the full story, but the people who had actually been inside the room understood something very different. The handshake wasn't a rejection. It wasn't a sign of distance. It was an agreement built on honesty. Charlotte had stayed true to her feelings. Camilla had chosen not to pressure her. And together, they had found a way to move forward without pretending to be something they weren't. When some advisors reportedly suggested that the palace should release a statement to calm public speculation, Prince William believed that would only place more attention on Charlotte. He felt children should never have to explain private family emotions to satisfy public curiosity. Surprisingly, Camilla agreed. She didn't want Charlotte's feelings turned into headlines simply to improve anyone's public image. That decision spoke louder than any official statement ever could. For the first time, everyone involved seemed to understand the same lesson. Respect cannot be demanded, trust cannot be rushed, and genuine family relationships cannot be built through titles alone. As time passed, family gatherings gradually became more comfortable. Charlotte continued addressing Camilla respectfully during official occasions. In private moments, she simply called her Camilla. No one insisted otherwise, and eventually that stopped mattering. Because by then the focus was no longer on what Charlotte chose to call her. It was on how they treated each other. In many ways, that became the real ending to this story. Not a victory, not a defeat, but a reminder that families often heal when people stop trying to control one another's emotions and start listening instead. Sometimes, the strongest relationships aren't built by forcing affection. They're built by allowing trust to grow naturally, one honest conversation at a time. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this royal story and would like to see more thoughtful discussions about the royal family, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for watching.